So nice to have you on the show.
Oh, great to be here today. Thank you.
Wonderful, John. So, for our viewers that may not be familiar with you, if you could please take a minute to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your background.
Oh, happy to do so. I'm John Whitaker. I'm a customer insights and analytics leader. I've spent my entire career on the client side in the Fortune 500. I've led teams in restaurants, consumer packaged goods, retail, and healthcare. So really nice diversity of customer experiences, both B2B and B2C customers. So excited to be here talking with you about my experiences and what I've learned across a number of different industries.
Wonderful, John. Wonderful, John. So, John, in these conversations, what I love to do is dive deep into the experiences that our guests have had with customer insights, with customer journeys. And I know you have as rich a background as as a lot of our guests have on the show, or maybe even richer. And so I'm really excited about our discussion today. Reflecting on your current and prior experiences, John, when your CEO or when your C-suite turns to you and says, "Good job," what are they typically expecting from you? What are they counting on you for?
In today's world, the competitive environment has never been more difficult. And the rate of change in any industry is just accelerating. So what goodness looks like is using the voice of the customer and understanding about the competitor and industry trends to reveal to the organization highly profitable strategic growth opportunities for the organization. And that comes through insights and analytics. The way I think about it, it's like going to Las Vegas and playing blackjack. If you count cards, it's going to tip the odds in your favor. You're not going to win every hand, but over the long run, you're going to win and make money. And insights is the same way. It's giving organizations that intelligence so they can make smart bets about the business and anticipate changes in the marketplace to grow profitably over the long term.
Wonderful, wonderful, John. So, John, when reflecting on the work that you've done in really helping your teams leverage the power of insights, leverage the power of customer journeys, what are some of the typical challenges that you faced, and how have you overcome them?
That's a great question. I think my experience has been across industries and companies. Many times the biggest challenges to improving and enhancing the customer experience are internally driven. It might be outdated technology that gets in the way of being able to meet customer needs in a differentiated way. It might be old habits, practices, processes that are dated. What I find is, companies that have been successful for many, many years tend to cling to those things that got them to where they are today. But those same methods, processes, procedures likely will not help those companies grow, advance in the future. And it goes back to that, the rate of change is just accelerating. So what helped you win in the past isn't necessarily going to help you win in the future. So letting go of those past practices and looking ahead and being willing to take risks, test and learn so that ultimately that customer experience can improve and drive the business forward.
That's wonderful to hear, John, and I really connect with that. A story that I often like to tell is in our business in doing customer journey mapping, often we get approached by clients, some of the leading brands, and they'll share with us um, journey maps that they've done in the past. And these are excellent graphics, looks like a very actionable document, very visually engaging. So we review that, and then a question that we often ask our clients is, so this looks like a customer journey map that was well done. How many customers did you speak with in developing this? And it does not cease to amaze me, even after having been in this business for several decades now. The answer that I dread getting, that I often get, is, "Oh, we really didn't talk with any customers. We spoke with, Sally over there in sales, and John in marketing, and Tim in operations, and we came up with this map, and all of our leaders have been in the company for several years. They know what the customer wants, and so that's how we put this together. So then, our typical next question is, so that's great. How has it been going for you so far?" They're like, it's not going well. We've had some turnover, so the leaders that put this together are no longer in the company, and it this doesn't seem to be working. We're not getting the results we thought we would get. And so that's typically the problem. It's very hard to proxy the voice of the customer, and I think that's why I connected with what you just said, because sometimes companies fall prey to this line of thinking, and then the results are not optimum.
And that's a great point. What I've consistently experienced in my career, coming into a new leadership role, that first 18 months feels like I'm host of the show Mythbusters, and it's really tearing down those internal mythologies that have sprung up over time, and folks have clung to those mythologies, and yet in a rapidly changing world, many times those internal stories don't at all line up with what the customer actually needs and wants from their vendor partners. And so undoing those stories takes a lot of work. And ultimately, that's where the voice of the customer and a lot of different data points that come from connecting and engaging with the customer are so important in undoing those mythologies and really bringing a true customer centricity to the organization.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, John. And for our viewers that are watching, what I would also like to emphasize is what both John and I are saying is, while that myth busting is important, there is also value in the knowledge, in the intelligence that an organization internally has. I think what we're saying also is, it, there is, what we're not recommending is that you discard everything that you have in house. What we're proposing more is build on it. So, for example, in our practice, what we do is, before we do any kind of customer journey work, we typically do a workshop up front where we request clients to give us all of their research, or John, I like what you used, give us all of your myths, give us all of your legends that you have, give us all of your data. We'll put it together in what we call like a hypothesis journey map, and we'll go in, and this is before any new work has been done. We'll go in and we'll present that, and we'll invite all the different team leaders, and our brief to them is, help us butcher this. Talk about these different customer journey stages, talk about these insights that are on the board, on this map, and do you agree with it? And so, what happens then is now you have these different perspectives that come to the table where you may have a leader saying, oh, this is correct, I agree with it. But you'll have somebody in a different department say, well, but it's really not true because this is what we've seen. And now all of a sudden, this workshop has become a team building exercise, right? Where now you're getting to hear these different viewpoints that sometimes might be contrary, but they're all talking about that same customer stage, that same journey stage. And what to us as the journey specialists in the room, what that tells us is, these are the gaps that now exist in your understanding because now we have two different viewpoints. Maybe they're all correct, or maybe there's a missing link. This is what our research now needs to address, right? So I think, to dovetailing on your point about myth busting, maybe that might be the way, I would recommend for a lot of our viewers is encapsulate that, collect that, identify if that's the truth or if it's a myth, and then leverage your research or your plan of actions to address that, to build on it, to take it to the next level.
And that's a great observation. As you attempt to understand the customer's journey and enhance that customer's experience with the company or brand, it's so important to understand the employee experience as well and parallel path both. Because what I found in customer journey mapping is if you do that, then you bring understanding to the organization when and how to engage with the customer that fits with their needs at that point in the buying journey. And that's true, be it fast moving consumer goods, where there's low amount of customer consideration, to B2B purchase decisions where the purchase cycle might be 18 months. And we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars in terms of the overall purchase being made. So in both cases, both extremes, understanding that employee experience in parallel with the customer's experience, incredibly powerful.
That is absolutely spot on, John. And, I think at this segment of the interview, I think, given your rich background across different organizations, across different verticals, I think now I want to get into the more fun part of war stories, right? And I know you have a lot of gold nuggets over there. Can you please share any prior experiences, when you were faced with a customer journey mapping or a customer insights challenge? Talk about the challenge, the way you addressed it, and the impact it had on the business.
Yeah, I think back a number of years ago, working on a consumer product category. It was a category where typically the consumer is spending $1,000 or more in that purchase. So it's very low frequency of purchase, high engagement, high consideration consumer category. And at the time, the business I was on, that category was underperforming where it needed to be relative to other categories being sold. And so we started out exploring a variety of data sources, just behavioral data. So sales data, tracking customers over a long period of time and their purchase behavior and patterns, doing ethnographic research, spending time with consumers, both in the store, online, in the home, leveraging obviously quantitative surveys to understand purchase drivers, what kinds of needs and wants do consumers have in that category, what things are important or not in making a purchase decision, and many other data points. And those separate data points helped us then to build a picture of what that journey looked like. And the journey was quite complex. It started out with the customer engaging and spending a lot of time online early in that journey. And ultimately that journey led to a need for in-store experience, to experience that product firsthand and in person, because it's such a major purchase decision. And then that journey would shift back to online, maybe go back to in-store, and ultimately that transaction might take place in-store or online. But mapping out that journey and understanding the role of online and the digital assets and what kind of information was needed on the website versus what kind of information was needed in store at the point of display of those products, as well as the needs that the customer had at that transactional stage. And so it helped us understand how to engage with the customer, when to engage with the right kinds of information and the kinds of information that they needed in that journey. And that understanding ultimately helped create a dramatically better experience for the customer, which led to double-digit growth for that category year over year over year, which was very exciting. But what I took the most pleasure from in that journey work was a key competitor in this category had an earnings call, and they were asked about that category. And it was really funny. The CEO of this company said that this product category is predominantly shopped and purchased online, and that's why they didn't have a big in-store presence for that category. And I laughed because they didn't do their homework. They saw that early stage where online was very, very important, and they stopped their work there clearly and put their emphasis and investment in the online experience, missing out on the very important point that the in-person, in-store experience was critical to ultimately sealing the deal on making the sale or not, that the customer really needed that touch point to be assured about making that purchase. So I found that interesting, and it clearly explained why we were outperforming our competitor in that category. And it all came down to having that full, robust understanding of the buying journey.
That's a really illustrative and exhaustive experience share, John. And I think viewers will really get a lot of value from it. What I also want to underline in the experience you just shared for our viewers also is, a couple of things that really shone out to me. The first was you so correctly understood that the journey went beyond just at the time of purchase or what was happening initially in that awareness shopping phase when they were online. And that is something that was then reflected in all the different tools and formats you used, with the ethnography, with the online work, with the in-person work. And that is something I just want to absolutely underline for our viewers, because, if our customers, especially in the CPG category, I mean, customers are sophisticated. Their buying habits, their shopping habits are also sophisticated. And so what I'm really glad is that the reason you leveraged all these different formats was reflective of your understanding of the customer's psyche. And so many times we see clients that get just tunnel visioned into focusing on just improving the checkout experience or improving that awareness stage, and missing out on really understanding that their customers, first have complex journeys. So the tools or the formats that we deploy can also, have to match that. I'm not saying they have to be overtly complex, but you really can't expect one survey to give you all the insights, because in your case, a survey would just have been reflective. It would have missed out on that in the moment data capture that you did. So I think that is so critically important that our viewers watching need to understand and really respect that the shopping journeys are not just complex, but they're also cyclical. And they have these different stages that need to be evaluated because, like you said in your example, the competitor was missing out on this linkage that was happening that was causing them to just overtly focus on one stage and just miss out on the rest of the goal.
And I like that observation about, and I agree, the cyclical nature of these purchase cycles. And in many categories, what I've seen is part of that cycle is an emotional up and down for the customer as they make that journey. There's both emotional highs and lows, and understanding how to help that customer through those emotional low points is really important for brands, because that's the point where you could potentially lose a customer, where they emotionally have such a low that they disengage with the category and decide to use their money on something else.
That is another wonderful point you've brought up, John. In the journey vernacular, we call those as moments of truth. And these are moments that can very easily, like you said, they can either become what we call as peak points, or they can become pit points. So pit points are those what you're talking about, which is there was this moment, it's integral in that stage of the customer's journey. It was not addressed in a positive way or adequately. It became a pit point. And the impact that these pit points, John, as you know, is they can make or break that experience that the customer is having. And something that I really want viewers to also realize is when a pit point happens, the customer's journey does not stop. Their journey still continues. What stops is their engagement with you. So it's like going to the dance, they just won't go with you, they'll just go with somebody else, which, for that player or that competitor, they realize that moment of truth. But instead of them making it a pit point, they worked on making it a peak point. And it's really these peak points that motivate or drive the customer, to be in your favor as they move through their journeys. So I think I just, that's something about that I'm really passionate about when I see clients miss out on these moments of truth. And I'm like, no, that's the opportunity. That's the, another analogy is think of those Lego blocks. And each Lego block connects to another block with a certain point. There's a certain space where one block connects to another. Those are your moments of truth. If you miss out on them, you're not connecting the story, and it's not happening in your favor.
Oh, and that's critical. I found that to be true in terms of both B2B and B2C selling. In terms of consumer products, there's so much competition out there and so much choice. I mean, just one little slip up in that experience, to your point, then that customer engages with different brands and not you. What I found in B2B, sometimes if that customer experience isn't the best, there's so much risk in making a change at these organizations, and there's a real risk aversion with buyers. Sometimes the easiest choice is to make no choice at all. So if you're not really sharp in terms of that customer experience, you're not giving that customer the reason to make a change and to go with you, and just maintaining the status quo, then it gets really tough to get those incremental sales.
That's right. That's right, John. And, something that we've encountered is when we do this journey evaluation or journey mapping work for clients, a lot of times, there are so many insights that get thrown out. As you know, I mean, if you're deploying different formats like you did with the ethnographic, with the in-store, with the online, with the digital analysis, there's a lot of data that's going to come up. And a question that we often get from clients is, okay, this is a lot of insights you've given me, and I'm drowning because how do I help prioritize my internal teams? How do I guide my internal teams on, it seems like everything's broken. How do we prioritize it? And so something that we consult with clients on is, when we collecting information, viewing it from that moment of truth perspective, that peak and pit point perspective, is really helpful, because then you can understand, okay, to address this pit point and to convert it into a peak point, well, okay, these are the things I need to do. Now, how do I prioritize these things further is, what we do, John, is we assign a dollar amount to it. What's it going to take to fix? And what's the impact going to be in terms of either a revenue upside or maybe stopping a revenue leakage that may be happening? And so when you start thinking of it like that, as you know, with your discussions with the C-suite, often we as researchers get really enamored with the insights and the data. With the C-suite, it's like, that's all good. Tell me how it moves the needle, right? And so in our practice, we've seen having these different versions of journey maps, where you have one version for the C-suite that's all about opportunities and leakages. And then you have different versions for the marketing, the ops, the sales teams, where it's more insights, action items. That's something that I think people find more actionable and relevant.
Oh, I agree. And that's where in the past I've used modeling to help ultimately identify what are those critical points, and using something like the Kano model, for example, to understand, what are those table stakes attributes or features that have to be in place just to have you in the game. What then are those next level differentiators that help you separate yourself from the competition? And then at the peak of the hierarchy is, what are those delighters? What are those things that the customer doesn't expect from anybody in the category? But if you deliver it in a really great way, it helps you stand out and drive upsized loyalty with the customer. And so through modeling of data combined with attitudinal information can be really powerful and build really powerful models to help companies understand where to invest, where to put their efforts to get the biggest ROI.
Absolutely, absolutely, John. So great experience shares, John. I really appreciate it. And I think viewers watching will have a lot of fun and hopefully get a lot of good insights from this segment. One final question that I wanted to ask you is, given these rich experiences that you've had, and naturally it's obvious that you've made a great impact with your clients, with your employers as well. However, reflecting back on some of these customer journey, customer insights projects, knowing you the way I have now come to know you, I know you're always working on improvements as well. Reflecting on some of these in hindsight, are there places or are there any projects where, if you could turn the clock back, would you have done something different than what you did?
Oh, definitely. Because you think about it, all decisions, no matter how simple or complex, all decisions ultimately are grounded in emotion and subconscious influencers and drivers of behavior, things that the customer can't articulate and aren't fully aware of what's going on in terms of how these subconscious drivers influence their behavior. So getting at and using methods that help us tap into that subconscious. It might be drawing from psychology and deploying implicit association testing, or it might be drawing from neuroscience and leveraging mobile EEG and eye tracking. And those are just some examples of methodologies that ultimately, in the future, I want to get a fuller picture of both in terms of how Daniel Kahneman thinks about decision-making behavior, getting at both system one and system two thinking fast and thinking slow. And we've done a great job in terms of the market research community at getting at the well-considered system two kind of response, but we need to do a better job at getting at that system one kind of response. What are those environmental cues and triggers that will lead to loyalty and ultimately people purchasing those products or services?
Again, that is a wonderful nugget that you've shared, John. And I want people watching to really comprehend this, because you're absolutely right. Implicit behavior is something that I feel often gets missed, not just in our everyday research projects, but also in customer journey work. And that is a gap. In terms of an experience share, we were doing something for one of the large restaurant chains a few years ago. And with them, the focus was they wanted to obviously improve the online experience. But given that they are a restaurant chain, in-store was also very, very critical. And I applaud the leadership over there, where they were focused on really providing the holistic experience and optimizing it, for their customers. And with that in-store piece, because that client had such specific and well-defined objectives that they were trying to overcome, we had to implement implicit techniques like eye tracking, like biometrics, in our work with them. And I can't tell you how pleased we were to incorporate that. That was actually one of our first journey projects where we leveraged implicit techniques in it, and the results were mind-boggling. I mean, because here we were leveraging not just the insights that that robust team had previously. Now we were also going in, collecting these implicit formats, coupling it with the behavioral, the in-store, the survey, the ethnography work, and then digesting all of it and coming up with this, journey evaluation that was both type 1 and type 2 integrated into it, with the insights and the storytelling that went along with it. I was bound, I'm still bound by the NDAs, but I would love to talk about the results and reveal that client's name. I can't do it. They know who they are if they're watching this, but we were really proud of the work we did for them. And I feel like had we not leveraged the implicit techniques in that format, the dish would have been half-baked. So I just, when you said that, I was immediately reminded of that work, and I wanted to make that point that yes, if implicit techniques, behavioral techniques can be embedded into journey work, then the rewards are very enriching and the insights are really taken to the next level.
Yeah, that's a great example. And you're right. My experience has been when you're able to leverage these techniques, you unveil truths that weren't readily apparent just dealing with the usual set of data. It truly reveals new insights that are incredibly actionable and yet give deep insights into why customers do what they do. So it's a very exciting field, and the methods keep getting better and better every year. So very exciting type of work to incorporate into a broader study.
Wonderful, John. Well, with that, we come to the end of this segment. I wanted to thank you again for taking the time to chat with us. Speaking with you is always a learning experience for me, and I get to pick up a few things. So I just wanted you to know that, and I truly appreciate you coming on the show and sharing these wonderful nuggets with me and our audience.
Well, thank you. It was fun to be here. I appreciate the invitation, and I always enjoy sharing stories from my past. So thank you for the opportunity.